Hello students, today we are going to talk about preparation for communication assessment in mathematics. So here we have the rubric for criterion C, communication, and we are going to straight away jump to level 7-8 because hey, that's what we should aim for, right? Alright, let's have a look. What are the requirements, what are the strands that we need to pay attention to in communication? So the first one, consistently use appropriate mathematical language. So what does that mean? Here we are in algebra unit. So when you are trying to explain your work in communication task, try to use the proper terminologies. For example, previously we have learned about term, for instance, coefficient, variable, constant, expression, and equation. We have also some other words that we have used in algebra. We have factorize, we have like terms, right-hand side and left-hand side of an equation, inverse operation, balance method in solving equation, and so on and so on. So try to use all the proper terminologies when you are writing a communication assessment. The next strand is to use different forms of mathematical representation to consistently present information correctly. An example of this will be, here this is a patterning task. So this is a screenshot taken from some work of a student, and here clearly the student used different kinds of mathematical representations. So the student has used diagram, table, graph, an algebraic formula, and also written description and explanation. So here is a good example of using different types and different forms of mathematical representation. The next trend is to move effectively between different forms of mathematical representation. So not only you should use different forms, but you also should move effectively between them. So as an example, this example is also in the file that you will get on It's Learning today. So you can have a look later on yourself and see the model solution for communication task. So for instance, in this sample, you can see the mathematical equation and expression is actually used and then afterwards followed by some explanation and sentences, and you go back again to mathematical explanation and then text again and so on. So in that case, there is a certain movement between explanation and equation, which are two different types or forms of mathematical representation. Use of color is also always useful, okay? Use of color and use of diagram, for instance, is always useful. So meanwhile, we are looking at this document. This is another example of using the correct mathematical terminologies. So here you see in just a few sentences, in this example, we have used quite a lot of mathematical terms. So factors, for instance, coefficients, highest common factor, expression, variable, and so on. Right, the next strand, communicate through lines of reasoning that are complete and coherent. So what does that mean? So your flow of thought should be clear. Coherent means you should not jumble up your explanation and jump around from one to the next and then something else again and so on. But the flow of thought has to be clear. And complete means the reader should not be wondering, what does this student mean? There is some explanation which is not there, so that from one step to the next, it's not very clear what you mean. So try to explain things completely. The last strand is to present work that is consistently organized using a logical structure. So for instance, when you start explanation, sometimes you might need an introduction. If it is a bit longer kind of project, then you will need an introduction. What are you going to do in the task and so on. And afterwards, all the explanation, mathematical work, your diagram, graphs, and so on. And in the end, you might need to write a short conclusion. So this is called organizing your work in a logical structure. So pay attention to all this when you are writing communication tasks. Today you will be asked to try maybe 2 or 3 questions, and you can write your explanation. Next task will be for you to go to the document that says model solution, and you can read through it and see what is a good communication task. How should I write my explanation so that it is clear for other people to read? Good luck!